Have you ever been driving down a highway and suddenly there's traffic for no reason? And you kind of assume, oh, maybe there's some construction going on somewhere. And it's hours before you realize, no, there's no construction. There's nothing wrong with your road. It's actually a car crash on the other side of the road that everyone has just been looking at. And that's why there's traffic. That's the summer I turned pretty. I started watching The Summer I Turned Pretty last summer when my best friend and my sister both insisted I had to watch it. After, mind you, they had already told me the entire plot of all 3 books. My immediate reaction was absolutely not. I am above such lowbrow drama-based entertainment. So I am not above such lowbrow drama-based entertainment. But actually, I'm not convinced that my first assessment of The Summer I Turned Pretty was an entirely fair assessment of it. Okay, so sure. It's full of the drama of Belly Conklin. Okay, let's see. Be in love with one brother for her whole life and then kiss the other and then get with the first and then break up with him and get with his brother, who then cheats on her and then proposes to her, which she then accepts, only for the wedding to be called off last minute as the first brother confesses undying love for her at... Yeah, it's kind of a lot. So I feel like there's kind of 2 major kinds of watchers watching this show this summer. The first are the people going, whoa, wow, what is this? I love this. And the second are the people going, whoa, what is this? What am I watching? I started out as the second kind of person, the whoa, what am I watching person, and then actually kind of graduated to the first, the oh my gosh, what is this? Wow, I love this. But it was a bit of a journey, I think. One thing that I have noticed is that, and this is not just true of The Summer I Turned Pretty, I'll be telling somebody what I'm enjoying recently, and they go, oh, okay, that's nice. What is that? I've noticed that not just for The Summer I Turned Pretty, but actually quite a lot of things, which is why I decided to make this video, because it's legitimate to enjoy this show, and it's actually quite good for a lot of reasons. So I decided to research the reasons why I think The Summer I Turned Pretty is actually really good. I've been a fangirl for a really long time, since I was maybe around 7 years old and first listened to the audiobook of The Chronicles of Narnia, and since then I've kind of just gone through different things that I've been a huge fan of. And one thing that I've found persists no matter what I'm a fan of at the time is the people laughing. So I decided at my big age of 23 to take my training in journalism, my skills in debate, my experience in writing, both fiction and nonfiction, and most of all, my fangirl heart, and just research into why the things I love are actually good. With that said, the next time somebody rolls their eyes at you, you can slap them with logic, with studies, with psychology, with historical precedent, or even maybe you're just satisfying your own curiosity about why you like the things you like, or even if you were just curious why it's been so popular, whether you've watched it or not. And so my goal is just to help all of us fangirls, all of us girlies, or if you're not a girly, if you're a boy enjoying The Summer I Turned Pretty, which is awesome, by the way, I hope you are, because it's good, understand why you like this show, because it's a good show. So I got your back. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why I think The Summer I Turned Pretty took this summer by storm. It has to do with a few things. It has a little bit to do with the human tendency to rubberneck a car crash, with an age-old literary tradition, thanks Charles Dickens, called a cliffhanger, with the power of team spirit, and finally, last but not least, with our collective close personal friend, Conrad Fisher. Have you ever been driving down a highway and suddenly there's traffic for no reason? And you kind of assume, oh, maybe there's some construction going on somewhere. And it's hours before you realize, no, there's no construction. There's nothing wrong with your road. It's actually a car crash on the other side of the road that everyone has just been looking at. And that's why there's traffic. That's The Summer I Turned Pretty. Okay. Maybe that's not an entirely fair analysis. But we have an interesting phrase in Chicago, which is Chicago specific, as I realized while researching for this video. We call it a gaper's delay, when everyone is just looking at a car crash and it causes traffic. But I actually believe this human tendency to look at a car crash has a lot to do with The Summer I Turned Pretty. So I was researching reasons why people look at car crashes, and it turns out there's a couple of reasons why we succumb to this morbid-esque curiosity. An instinct to learn for one's future protection, an instinct to understand what's going on for your own comfort. There's a couple of different reasons, but there's another reason that I found most interesting, I think. So I came across this local news article that interviewed a psychology professor about this phenomenon, Dr. Spee Kozloff, who details one reason that I found particularly interesting: ego. To sum up Dr. Kozloff's point in a nutshell, this is not a direct quote, but it's comforting to look at someone in a bad situation and find reasons why they got into that situation and we did not. The example he gives is someone looking over at a car crash, seeing it involved an older person, and finding pleasure in the fact, well, clearly they were too old to be driving, but me, I'm fine. I think this has a lot to do with The Summer I Turned Pretty, because if we're honest here, half of the fun is screaming at Belly for her bad decisions. You can't tell me that watching Belly make any decision isn't like watching a car crash in action. Because let's be real, I would never take back somebody who cheated on me, and I would certainly never accept their proposal of marriage right after they'd apologized for them cheating on me. I truly think that there is an element of ego involved in enjoying watching somebody make bad decisions. It's comforting and entertaining because clearly we would never make decisions that bad, right? I mean, we would never get into a car crash. That's actually true. I've never been involved in a car crash. The next reason why I think The Summer I Turned Pretty is so popular has to do with an age-old literary tradition. Back in the 1840s, Charles Dickens was almost responsible for riots on the docks in the US. Why? Because he was currently writing a very popular serial novel. The last chapter had ended with a beloved character in a precarious position, and given that everyone had waited forever for the boat to bring over the next installment, people were literally yelling at the boat. The cliffhanger has been a literary tradition for quite a while, and it shows up a lot in The Summer I Turned Pretty. The show has a pretty addictive writing style, as many TV shows do, because of its tendency to end episodes on a big cliffhanger. It really plays off of that human need for conclusion by making a major decision or having someone take a major action at the end of almost every episode, often specifically an action that will have major consequences. For example, the scene where Conrad gets cut on his surfboard, Belly takes care of him while engaged to Jeremiah and nearly kisses him. That's how the episode ends. Or the next episode where Conrad confesses undying love to her on the night of her bachelorette party when she's about to marry Jeremiah. Both of those are major things. The episode just ends there. And we have to wait an entire week to find out what happens next. Hey, but let's look on the bright side. At least we don't have to wait until the next ship comes over. While an addictive and effective writing point, however, this could be seen as shoving The Summer I Turned Pretty a little more down the ranks of great art and more into the dime a dozen heroine tied to the tracks type show. But I don't think that's fair. And that's where I would stand up to the people who roll their eyes a little bit at The Summer I Turned Pretty and its drama and its cliffhangers. Because there's no shame in using a classic literary device to tell a story in an entertaining way. If you are solely relying on a cliffhanger to keep people invested, less legitimate. But if you're using an entertaining and classic literary device to tell it well, I think that's legitimate. Actually, The New Yorker would agree with me. I was looking into the history of cliffhangers and I came across this excellent article, and this is a direct quote from The New Yorker that says, "There's another aspect of cliffhanger history: joy. When done well, it can be about surprise, shock, outrage, and pleasure. The sort of thing that might send you dancing off the sofa. The cliffhanger is part of some of the silliest shows on TV. It's also key to understanding many of the greatest ones. It's that visceral jolt that's not so easily detached from some of television's most erudite achievements." Unquote. All that being said, there's no shame in a good cliffhanger sending the entire internet into a frenzy every Wednesday. The next reason why I think The Summer I Turned Pretty has become so popular has to do with the power of team spirit. If you want to know a little something about team spirit, I would highly recommend tracking down one of the 86% of men who showed some interest in sports in the year 2023. If you want to go a little further, I think it would be particularly helpful to track down one of the 44% who considered themselves an avid fan. The importance and power of shared identity is just a fact of life, and it's a little bit hard to overstate it, actually. It comes out quite a lot in sports fans, but anyone who's willingly part of any kind of team has experienced it. A study from the National Library of Medicine actually discusses this, and this is a direct quote. They say, "A shared identity brings a sense of connection with others. And this mutual intimacy and warmth in social relationships is experienced positively. Shared identity in a crowd gives rise to a sense of others as a source of acceptance and recognition. So hopefully you see where I'm going with this. Team Conrad, Team Jeremiah. There's a reason why people love dividing themselves into teams like this. It gives a sense of camaraderie, of acceptance from others, even if it's bonding over something so trivial as a fictional man. But, of course, recent history is actually littered with examples like this. Teams Edward and Jacob, Peeta and Gale, even the Hogwarts houses, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, Gryffindor. All of these count as ways people have divided themselves, joined teams, united under one banner, even if it's a fictional one. But there's one thing several of those love triangles I just mentioned have in common, and it has to do not just with having someone to root for together, but also somebody to collectively root against. Nothing brings people together more like a common enemy, and while past seasons may have been more divided over which Fisher brother was right for Belly, this season seems a lot closer to unanimous. Jeremiah Fisher is our poor sacrificial lamb this season, bringing people together not only in rooting for Conrad, but also in rooting against a cheating, chocolate-obsessed man-child. Or so the Conrad stans would argue, of course. So yes, while this summer we all may be bonded over our mutual love or hatred of fictional men, is that really such a small thing? The internet united, or even close to united in this day and age? I don't think that's something to be scoffed at. I think it's something worth considering. And it's definitely something that has helped the popularity of The Summer I Turned Pretty. If you weren't watching it before, watching everybody drool over Conrad Fisher and aggressively hate Jeremiah has piqued certainly some people's interest for sure. And that, of course, leads me to my final point. I save the best for last. Our collective, close, personal friend, Conrad Fisher. Now, Conrad is an excellent character. And I'm not just saying an excellent character as in an excellent person. I mean an excellent character in the way that I would call Javert from Les Mis an excellent character, or Kaz Brekker from Six of Crows. He's an excellent character not because he's entirely a good person, but because he has a lot of flaws. Now, please don't take this as me equating The Summer I Turned Pretty with Les Miserables. They're two entirely different things, and I'm not trying to equate them. Both of them have interesting, complicated, and layered characters, and Conrad is certainly one of those for The Summer I Turned Pretty. This man is flawed, but he also has an incredible growth arc with very realistic setbacks, flaws, and failures. There's a reason why in season 1 I was Team Cam Cameron, because let's be honest, neither of those Fisher boys deserved or were ready for a relationship with anyone, not with Belly. And certainly not Conrad, who I personally was not really rooting for in season 1. Regardless of which of his decisions you can attribute to grief going through the death of his mother, the most mature thing that he did in the show was deciding to step back at the end of season 2. All that is to say, I was no diehard Conrad girly. That is, until the fruition of his character arc this season. I don't just root for Conrad now because I dislike Jeremiah. I root for him because he's set up as genuinely a very good choice for Belly, which wasn't always the case. This season sets up Conrad as true husband material. Like, he's really there stepping up for Belly even when it's to his own detriment. I mean, he's helping her plan her wedding to someone else while he's in love with her. He shows a lot of maturity in the way he handles things around her, holding back his feelings, showing extreme emotional intelligence, just all around being a rock for her to lean on in a really tough time. He's set up as a contrast, a foil to Jeremiah, being there, present, physically fixing things for Belly, while Jeremiah is far away creating problems. It's not subtle, and it's not supposed to be, but that doesn't make it less impactful. The show sets him up as a man who is acting as a man should be acting toward his partner, as a support, because that's what romantic partners should be. A support to each other in a variety of different aspects. But again, when I say an excellent character, I don't mean someone without flaws. And that's part of the intrigue. Conrad is very human. He's smart, emotionally intelligent, supportive, attractive, and also selfish, impulsive, and thoughtless. The line that actually had me cringing away from his confession the night of her bachelorette party was this one: "Belly, don't be with him, be with me." It's the epitome of selfish, thoughtless, and impulsive. I mean, just wait until they're no longer engaged at least. Because even smart, emotionally intelligent, supportive, attractive people have their moments. No one is all of those things all the time, even if they're generally true. And that's just how people are. A kind person isn't somebody who's never done anything bad in their entire life. I just think Conrad is set up really well, not only as a good man, but also as a complicated, layered, and flawed person. And I think that can ultimately be more attractive. I mean, not that many people are expecting to meet a perfect real-life Disney prince, but Conrad Fisher? Flawed but trying? That might be a little more realistic, maybe. Anyway, it's worth keeping those traits that you appreciate about Conrad in mind next time you're on a date or looking for any kind of partner. So, if anyone ever laughs at you for being a fangirl of The Summer I Turned Pretty, I hope I've given you some material to respond in turn. Why, according to psychology professors, they're no better if they've ever looked at a car crash. Why, 1840s Charles Dickens fans might also appreciate this show. Why, the National Library of Medicine says the power of team spirit applies just as much to Team Conrad as it does to the Chicago Cubs. And of course, how Conrad Fisher will ensure you have a long-lasting and love-filled marriage. Or something along those lines, anyway. So, next time there's traffic on the highway, for no good reason, I hope it'll remind you of your favorite TV show this summer, The Summer I Turned Pretty.